So that was incredible as a neighbor, and I knew the coach at that time, Dusty May, who's now at Michigan. I loved seeing it happen, even though you would drive around Boca Raton, like the week of the Final Four, and there was no visual or visible evidence that this miracle was happening. It was crazy. And at the same time, an hour away at University of Miami was also in the Final Four. And every year at the Final Four, it brings me back to my one trip to a Final Four as a broadcaster. I was doing radio at Providence College when Rick Pitino was the head coach. Billy Donovan, who's heard of Billy Donovan? He's getting inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame later this summer in September. He was the point guard on that Providence team that took Providence College and even me on this incredible and memorable trip to the 1987 Final Four, where we lost to Syracuse, a Syracuse team that had Ronnie Cycli, Sherman Douglas, Derek Coleman. Cycli and Sherman Douglas ended up playing for the Heat, so I know those guys for a lifetime. But that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing for a school like Providence to make it to a Final Four. For me as a radio broadcaster to get to announce in a Final Four, and for the longest time, that was like the pinnacle of my broadcasting career. And then I got blessed to get hired by the Miami Heat when I was 30 years old. 1988-89, it was the first year of the Miami Heat, and I joined the broadcast team that year. And I left the life I had in New England behind and started this journey here, and incredibly, it's 37 years later. And not only am I now I'm the TV broadcaster. I started out as a radio guy. My passion in life was to be the best radio play-by-play guy I could be. For some reason, I grew up at a time where not every game was on TV like it is now. And I was an active listener. I'd sit on the edge of my bed and listen to Knick games, and I just not only fell in love with the game, but I, for some reason, fell in love with what I was hearing, the art of describing a game on radio. So I enjoyed it as a listener and a consumer, and then it sort of planted that seed as a dream of maybe what I could do for a living. That's a long, winding journey to get to Miami, and I'll be honest with you, to tell you some of my best memories. I got great memories from my 37 years with the Heat. Some of my most precious memories are from the beginning of my career. My first job, I started working at Cornell University. By the way, they just won the lacrosse national championship, and I was there. I saw they won 4 national championships. First one was in '72. I wasn't there. The second was in 1976, and it was played at Brown Stadium in Providence, Rhode Island. And as a college freshman, I drove to the game and saw Cornell beat Maryland in overtime, and it was an incredible game. And then they won it again in '77 with this incredible coach that I still love to this day, one of the best coaches and people I've ever been around. His name was Richie Moran. And like we talk about Heat culture, we're not the only organization with culture. And trust me, the Heat have their own unique culture. But you find it in all different places. Businesses, sports organizations, whatever, places that have a prideful culture. And this man created that with Cornell Lacrosse. And he's passed away like 4 or 5 years ago. But that culture with their program still exists today. So by chance, a friend of mine that I work with wanted to go to a lacrosse Final Four. And for years, I sort of put him off. We both love lacrosse, and we worked together for a long time with the Heat. And then this year he said, let's do it. And I still wasn't going to do it. And then this guy announced that he was leaving the Heat after 27 years working in a very high-ranking position in Heat broadcasting. And when he announced that, I said, I got to think about going to this thing with this guy now, more than ever. And then, as fate would have it, Cornell University gets into the lacrosse Final Four with like a 1-goal win in the quarterfinal game. It went down to the final seconds. And then in the next game, Syracuse gets in with a 1-goal victory against Princeton, 19-18. So both these schools that I'm close with, Cornell, I worked there, I still love the place, people that I know there. Matter of fact, the Cornell lacrosse program still gives out an award at their yearly banquet in my dad's name. That's a whole nother story. But I am emotionally and forever connected with Cornell University and specifically with Cornell lacrosse. So, guy that I've worked with for 27 years is retiring, wants to go to this thing. The reason I'm into Syracuse, I have a daughter who just finished her freshman year as a broadcast journalism major at Syracuse. So now all of a sudden I'm like into Syracuse stuff too. They both make it to the Final Four, and Cornell wins. It was great. So it was great. Richie Moran's saying was always, "It's great to be here," and it was. You never forget, where you came from and where you left a piece of yourself. And I think that's what's guided me in my journey most. It's not doing the games, it's putting yourself into it and getting a lot out of it. And it's funny, I'm going to tell you the story that's so topical for me this year. And I want to open up to questions so I can talk exactly about what you guys want to hear about or what you're not nearly as important, but very meaningful career and work. So it's always been a balance, but preparing for so traveling is a big thing. Having to relocate to stay alive and survive and advance in this business is challenging. But I had an epiphany. I had this vision sitting at my desk one day this past season. I'm going to pass this around later. This is how I prepare for games. I'm going to pass it around so you guys can take a closer look at it. I say this humbly, I'm one of the most prepared, and I would say maybe the most well-prepared broadcaster going into each game. Doesn't mean nobody gets a prize for that. Bad habits are the same as good habits. They're hard to break. And one of my best habits is my work ethic and how I like to prepare for games. But that takes effort. Like, I have a lot of colleagues around the league and even with my own team, and there's no one way. Everybody's got to find their own way. But I have colleagues around the league and with our team that pay somebody to do their preparation for them. And the preparation that this person does or these services provide, it's good. It's good stuff. It's good information. Some of it I don't have. I don't know how long it takes me to prepare for each game, but I would guess somewhere between 4 to 8 hours of work per game to prepare all the stuff that I want for each game. The balancing act for me is knowing, like, just because you have it does not mean you have to use it. Very little of it will I use. What do I use when the game matches preparation? If I prepare for something and something takes place in the game that enables me to use it, that's like throwing a ringer and horseshoes. You got it. If it doesn't fit in the game, just leave it alone. So I take pride in being as smart for each game as I possibly can be, without feeling compelled to say, "Hey, look at me, I know this about that." If it doesn't fit in the game, you shouldn't use it. Well, one day sitting at my desk this year, we have like 3 games in the next 4 nights, and I work out of my house to prepare for games. And my wife walks into my office to talk to me about something, and I'm like so preoccupied preparing for this game that I was short with her, and I apologized to her, but when she walked out of the room, I sat there at my desk, and I thought to myself, what am I doing in my life? Like, how much time have I invested, spent, at the moment, like, wasted on preparing minutia, details, facts, and stories about 15 guys on each team? How many hours have I given to this and spent on this? And at the moment, I was sitting at my desk, I wondered, was it worth it? Is it worth it to put in all that time? And a day or two later, I'm talking to our head coach, Eric Spolstra. We get to interview him before every game. He does a group session with the media, and then he does a private session with just the Heat broadcasters. We get to sit and talk to Spo, and it's great. It's great information on a nightly basis about the game. We also do that with the opposing coach each night. I don't want to get off the story before I go back to something about the media with coaches. But I'm talking to Spolstra about Niko Jovic, our young power forward who's only 21 years old, and over the last year showed signs of emerging as maybe a very good player. We still don't have enough information about him to see yet, but it looks like he's going to be really good. So I asked him, about his development, and Spo started talking about, in the film room he's paying attention, in the weight room he's showing up and doing his work. When we have practices, he's focused in. And then he said something that hit me right here, that I pass on as often as I can. He's talking about Jovic. He goes, how you do anything is how you do everything. And that hit home with me because how I do this somehow translates to how I do that, which is broadcast games. Most important thing in announcing games is you can't, as much preparation as you do, it's sort of very secondary once the game begins. Because then the game goes on its own unique journey and you go with it. And you can't plan on that. That's when your spontaneity and your experience comes through and you call the game that's being played, not the game that you're prepared for. But having said that, I want to be 100% prepared for every game I do. I don't want to read a story online after the game, some little fact about the game that I did not have in our telecast. So I still to this day over-prepare. But going to the coaches' press conferences, the NBA years ago staggered the times where the two head coaches speak before games. So now you can go to your coach's press conference, and then we have that private session with Spo, and then you have time to go to the opposing coach's press conference, which is great. It's 10 to 15 minutes of questions and answers with the coach. So as much as I've already put on my chart, now I got a separate notepad, and I'm taking notes on the best things that these coaches said, because these are fresh stories that are coming out within an hour of the game. And it's just more that you may or may not use. But even if you don't use it, the knowledge that you gain from it is great. It's fresh, nightly NBA knowledge. You get a feel for what that team is about. You get a feel for what that coach is about. You know what else you do? You leave an impression with your peers at home and with the other team, with the other head coach who sees us there as broadcasters, the Heat, interested enough in his team and in their product to want to be there. Because one of the things I take pride in, I'm the Heat announcer. I'm going to go up and down emotionally and mostly tell the Heat story. But part of the job I take pride in and enjoy is telling the other team's story as smart and as intelligently and as accurately as I can. And to me, it adds flavor to the broadcast each night. The home fans know about the Heat right along with me, but I'm going to get you up to date and tell the other team's story as well. You owe that respect to the other team. It's the NBA, or no matter what level of sport you're calling, you want to tell the whole story. So, yeah, I can go in a million different directions, but some of this is like you're in this room, so you must have an interest in being sports announcers, and that's where it starts. Like, it almost doesn't even matter what it is we attach to, but it's a blessing when we can attach ourselves to a potential career that means more to us than just making enough money to pay the rent, put food on the table. We all have to do that. But when you can attach your passion and your interest to your profession, it's a very rewarding life. Being in the sports profession, like, some of us are motivated by money. Nothing wrong with that. And if you're motivated by money, put yourself in a lane where you can make the most money. Being a sportscaster is not that lane. You can earn a very good living, but so there's money people, and then there's passion pursuit people that put the passion first and work toward making more money. None of us get rich our first year out of college, but listen, the first thing is figuring out what you're interested in. And you, ladies and gentlemen, have thought enough about it to invest a week of your time in this camp, and now it's the beginning of your chance to turn your dreams and ideas into reality. And for me, I sort of knew I fell in love with radio play-by-play. And the first lucky break of my life came my sophomore year at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. And on South Hill, Ithaca College, East Hill sits Cornell University. Cornell was playing the University of Pennsylvania in a college basketball game. My former high school basketball coach was now the head coach at the University of Pennsylvania. So I talked to a buddy of mine at Ithaca College who had a car. I said, "Rich, could you give me a ride over to Cornell? I want to go see that game." And he did, and I went, and I don't remember a single detail about that game. But all I can remember is looking across the court at Barton Hall in Ithaca and seeing the WHCU radio broadcast booth
They did the Cornell Sports. 2 announcers doing the game on radio. One I didn't recognize. The other announcer, he looked like he was doing was the color person, was somebody I knew. He was a senior at Ithaca College. So right after the game, without even thinking, I run down the bleachers on one side, go across the court, up the bleachers on the other side of the arena, and I get the attention after the game ended with the guy I knew, the senior at Ithaca. I go, Dave, come here. He comes over to me. I said, what are you doing? He said, I do the color on the home games for Cornell, and I'm getting 1 academic credit at Ithaca College. It was a class called Radio Workshop that you get an academic credit for doing an internship. I heard this, I was like, my socks fell off my legs down to my shoes. I was like, so how'd you get that internship? The play-by-play guy is the news director. I got it through him. Because he was a senior, I was able to say, can you introduce me to him? He introduces me to the guy right on the spot. And I say right on the spot, like, Al, Mr. Beller, my name is Reid. I'm going to be a junior next year at Ithaca College. I would love this Cornell basketball internship next year. He said, meet me at my office Tuesday of next week and we'll discuss it. I go meet the guy at his office and he says, if you stay up over the summer and do a news internship for me, I'll give you the basketball internship next season. I said, you got a deal. So I rented a little apartment in Ithaca, New York for that summer, lived there by myself, covered town council meetings in downtown Ithaca, New York, right? And now I'm going to do color. As a junior at Ithaca College, I'm going to be doing color commentating for the 12 Cornell basketball home games. And this is a true story. I'm home on Thanksgiving break. I lived in Massapequa, New York with my family at the time. And my phone rings at home, and it's the general manager of WHCU Radio saying, Al Beller, the play-by-play guy, can't do the Cornell season opener at Syracuse. Can you drive up to Syracuse and do the game by yourself? I was like, yes, I can. I got in my car and I started driving like 5.5 hours in November to Syracuse from Long Island. I picked up a buddy in New York City and we made the trek and hit a winter snowstorm. I almost did not make it to this game in time. My car slid off the road. Somebody helped pull us out. I get to the game about a half hour before it starts. There's an engineer there. He had my equipment set up. And I sat down and I broadcast that game. And it was an adrenaline rush, and like a joy rush, and I loved it. And I got to do one other game like that year, Cornell at Niagara. And it was riding home on that bus from Buffalo, New York, back to Ithaca, that I said to myself, like, this is exactly what I want to do. This is what internships and beginning jobs are all about. It's like telling you, yes, this is what I want to do, or maybe not. So internships tell you the truth, whether you're passionate about it and willing to go that route or not. And I knew early on that, I was like, working for a team, doing their games, yes, that's a fit. And so then my senior year of college, I'm a senior at Ithaca College, I'm doing the Cornell games on the road by myself, and I'm the color guy at home. I graduate from Ithaca College. I'm the general manager of WHCU Radio, an older man who had done Cornell football radio play-by-play for like 30 years. Announces his retirement and names 21-year-old me or 20-year-old me the new play-by-play man for Cornell football, basketball, and lacrosse, and sports director at WHCU Radio, and a starting salary of $10,000. And I could not sign on that dotted line fast enough. I did not care how much or how little money it was. It was my entrance into the business. And I've never missed a basketball season as a broadcaster since my junior year of college. So that's 37 years with the Heat, 11 years of college basketball, a 48-year journey. And that tells you why, or that helps me tell you why, that I'm enjoying my job right now in a purer, richer, fuller way than I ever have before. Because, for example, Billy Donovan, I had him when he was a point guard at Providence, and now he's about to go into the Hall of Fame as one of the great coaches in college basketball history and in the NBA. So, what a long journey.